we live in a new world where everybody is seeking and they're desperate for health and therapies and healing. And that's because the world we live in today is functionally a world which has disconnected us from our innate nature, our humanity. You know, that our senses are being deprived. So there is no sensual, spiritual, intellectual imagination. Everything is just uniform, and we've become enslaved and zombified. You know, and this isn't like something kind of absurd to say. You can study this in a scientific level. There is no life force in people. They just wake up and they're just like robots.
Total monotony. Total monotony.
Complete. Now, if you look at the way the ancients lived, everything around them was therapeutic. The way they ate, the way the food, not just the food they ate, where they ate, how they ate, who they were eating with.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, the energy of that food. And something that I'm fascinated massively with and have been for a very long time now, as I refined my approach from food to gut health and how that, you know, as I began to heal all of the issues that manifested in my physical body and my spiritual body, you know, that's how I learned medicine, because now I had to reverse all the ailments and the disease in my body. And if I wasn't able to do that for myself and reinvent myself, you know, naturally, there was no way I could claim, you know, or my ego could sit on a desk with a load of certificates on my wall and say, hey, I am a physician, I'm going to make you better. For me, it just didn't make sense.
But I've said that so many times. I'm like, you can go into see a GP who's like 10 stone overweight, and he's like he's telling you to follow his instructions. It's like, well, why can't you do it for yourself? You know, it seems so basic. But if you say it to people nowadays, they're just like, they literally say what you're saying is stupid. And but to me, it seems so apparent.
Yeah, it's so obvious,
so clear.
right? And
eating medicine, man.
I think, and that's the problem is when you see doctors, often they're trained in medicine. They're not trained in nutrition. They're not trained in holistic health practices. They don't understand about, you know, they probably, a lot of them will say, oh, sleep's important, but they don't understand sleep. They don't understand, you know, certain breath work practices or meditation practices or contemplation you can do to help improve sleep and stuff like this. It's all about, or a lot of it is about, you know, what's the problem and what pill can we give you to fix that problem. Don't look at the root cause.
For sure. You know, my role today, you know, is a practitioner, and I like to say I'm a practitioner because I'm solving things and I'm being pragmatic in my approach to helping human beings based on the human experience I've had, the academic, you know, knowledge that I've developed, and the knowledge that I continue to, and wisdom I continue to seek, you know, as I grow, because I know the more I know, the more I don't know. You know what I mean? And you know, there's a concept in Arabic, we say sami'na wa ata'na, we hear, we obey. So my life from a very young age, I kind of molded into this yes sir, no, like yes sir, you know, mentality with my parents. Even though that's kind of, you could say that's a negative thing, saying yes is really bad because it leads to suppression of the true wants and needs. However, what I've developed in my spiritual side is, you know what, every time I learn something that I know is good and important and beneficial, whether there's research or not, I'm going to adopt it and implement it today, right now. You know, my ego is not going to get in the way to try and get me to rationalize and intellectualize it. No, the knowledge is sound, the intention is sound, and the person it's coming from is sound. You know, I haven't really, my education hasn't come from books or literature, it's come from people. You know?
I love using, I'll say that to people, like, why don't you tap in and experience, you know, feel into your own experience and use that to guide you. And I love using Dorian Yates as an example of that, the bodybuilder, because he was 20 years ahead of his time and he was winning all the Mr. Olympias. And that, one of the reasons, and, you know, he talks about this on plenty of the podcast, is he looked at what they were saying to do in the magazines, the bodybuilding magazines and books, and then he tried it, and he experimented and tried other stuff, and the other stuff worked better. So he thought, right, okay, my experience is this work better,
do it.
And he ran with it, and then he started winning competitions. And it wasn't until 20 years later that they started changing the magazines.
Of course.
Now, if he would have gone, oh, actually, you know, maybe, and doubted his own experience and gone, actually, no, this is what the book says, and done what the book says, he probably wouldn't have achieved what he achieved.
But he completely rewrote it, didn't he? Because at times when he was training, there was like real high volume bodybuilding, wasn't it? Like 4 sets of 10, and they were in the gym. Well, Arnold Schwarzenegger was in the gym for 4 hours a day at times and that kind of thing. And he said he was like a third of the amount of time he was in the gym. Was it high intensity training? It's called, isn't it? It's just like one set. It was completely revolutionary at the time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what he highlighted, and Arnie's a really good person to bring up because it gives another example, is as human beings we're unique, right? And Paul Chek says this, we're as different on the inside as we are on the outside. What works for one person might not work for another person. Now Arnie was an incredibly successful bodybuilder, and you know, he wrote the books that Dorian Yates ignored for himself and went and did his own thing. Now they were both really successful using two different methodologies, and probably if they were to exchange methodologies they wouldn't have been so successful. So it's important to, like, obviously look at the data, look at the research, see what other people who are successful are doing, and then try that for yourself and be willing to experiment and tweak stuff and then change, and not be dogmatic about what you're doing just because this or that textbook says that's the way you should be doing it. You know, I think people, we need to look at our personal learned experience. And another great example of this is I always talk about going to sea swimming and like the idea of grounding and stuff like that. Nothing makes me feel better than when I finished a day at work and I've been in front of the laptop all day and I got a headache. I'm like, right, I drive down to sea, I jump into the sea. It completely clears me. Now, I don't know what's going on there, you know, biologically, physiologically. I don't know what's going on. I couldn't explain it to you. But I know my experience is that really helps me refresh, wash the day off, and then relax in the evening. Now, you talk, you know, people, you know, throw around the concept of grounding and stuff like this. And some people will tell you it's woo-woo. All I know is it works for me. Because it works for me, I'll continue doing it.
You don't need a peer-reviewed...
Yeah, exactly. I don't need a double-blind, you know, placebo-controlled study to say it works. I just know for myself it works.
It takes a lot of courage to do what Dorian did, and you know, it comes back to human virtues. As we all explore our purpose in life, you know, which should be the purpose. The purpose of life is to figure out the purpose of life, and you know, all the experiences we have should lead us back to. Purpose. Nothing ever goes in the universe of the creator. Nothing is random. So if you live as if everything that's happened to you is random, you might not get anywhere. But if you start to connect the dots, you know, then you might have kind of a path which you may not be conscious or aware of being kind of, you know, opened for you just to step into if you took a time out to just stop, breathe, reflect, and have the courage. You know, so what Dorian did was have the courage to say, you know what, nah. And I think a lot of successful people in life, whatever success means, you know, these successful people that travel the world educating and you know, inspiring people to change, you know, ultimately it doesn't matter how many books you read, how many people you study and observe and listen to, it comes back down to the self and the willingness to sacrifice. And to have the courage to say, you know what, I'm not going to do this, I'm going to go this way. And in that, there are so many lessons and kind of changes in your being that happen in that split second when you just have the courage to break a habit or a pattern or a thought process or a friendship or all these things which we're attached to as humans, materialistically. And definitely one of the things in my life which I've kind of noticed, obviously, more recently, that has been a pattern, is my constant willingness to change and sacrifice. And people thought I was crazy because I was never settling. I was always doing this, I was doing that. I was everywhere and constantly changing my mind. And to the average person, I was ridiculous because there was no security or safety in my approach. But to the person I'm trying to be, it makes complete sense because I'm trying to get somewhere as a spirit, and I don't know where it is, and I have an idea of what I think that may be. Until I do that and experience something, it's going to lead me to stay or change. And I'm not afraid to say, to change or to stop and sacrifice. So I'm here today because I've made so many sacrifices. People won't even start to imagine how many sacrifices I've made to get here. And it's within those sacrifices and the education of, you know, the exploration of myself and my capacity and my will and my spirit through making really difficult changes and decisions in my life is where I've learned the most about my potential as a human being, how simple life is, and how successful people can be when they start being attached to stuff and ideas and thoughts and jobs and friends and parents.